Hello, I'm Randy Steere, and today I'll be presenting the organ works of our cousin, William Clarence Steere. Born in 1880, he lived most of his life in Worcester, Massachusetts, where he died in 1960. In terms of genealogy, his parents were Clarence E. Steere and Serena Maria Steere. Clarence and Serena were actually first cousins within the Steere family. Serena was the daughter of Horatio Steere and Sally Ann Tiff in Roots Branch number 243. Clarence was the son of William Busey Steere and Savala Ann Payne, found as branch number 237 en route. Now, Serena's father, Horatio, and Clarence's father, William Busey, were brothers, sons in the 237 Nathaniel Steere line. Both are correctly listed under the 237 line in our new genealogy book. In any case, their son William married Lucy Sarah Dudley, a fellow musician, in April of 1906 in Worcester. Lucy was an accomplished pianist and a piano teacher. They had two sons, Raymond and Howard, that we don't know an awful lot about. William died in 1960, as I said, and Lucy died a few years later in 1968. Both are buried in Massachusetts at the Millbury Central Cemetery. Now, musically, William's father was an organist and a violinist, and he started teaching William the piano when William turned 7. Apparently, the young William didn't apply himself to practicing, however, but he did become proficient enough to play the piano and sometimes the cornet in his father's orchestra while still a teenager. Now, William was quite taken when he was young by the music of Richard Strauss, and he had a youthful ambition to become the American Strauss. Accordingly, his first compositions reportedly were primarily dance and orchestral music, but we don't have those. We'll see today that most of his organ music is in 3, as a waltz would be, and in fact only 2 of his organ works are in 4 time. Now, William taught piano for a while after high school, and he moved from piano to organ lessons while studying composition with Andrew Knowlton. He went to the New England Conservatory for 3 years. He studied organ and choral conducting there under Dr. Henry Dunham, and also composition and orchestration with Dr. George Chadwick, both well-known names at the time. He then opened a music store in 1910 in Worcester when he was 30 years old. Now, we have written evidence that he worked at several churches in the Worcester area, but the only specific church that we know of was the Old South Congregational Church in Worcester, where he worked from 1936 to 1946. There he had a paid solo quartet, which was quite common at the time, along with a 30-voice choir, which is pretty large, a girls' choir, and a children's choir. The Old South Congregational Church was originally built in 1719. It existed at various locations and eventually merged with the Tatnuck Congregational Church in 1965 to become the present First Congregational Church. The organ at the church during William's tenure was a large American 4-manual Moeller instrument. William would have been very lucky to have such a fine instrument at his disposal, and this position was most likely considered a prestigious one. All of the organ music that William composed that we have was written for at least a 3-manual instrument with considerable tonal resources. Within the music that you'll hear tonight, he made ample use of clarinet, oboe, and solo flute stops, along with soft string accompaniments and even a loud solo tuba. I know of only one very small Moeller sample set for my digital pipe organ, so instead I've chosen to use the William Hill organ, originally from St. Paul's Church in Burton, England. This organ was built in the 1860s, and it has all the resources that we need that are required to play William's works. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a complete listing of William's works, but from what we do have, it looks like he was a fairly prolific composer. From my research at the Worcester Public Library and online at IMSLIP, among other sources, I have uncovered 21 compositions, all of which were published. Now, we only have copyright dates from the publications. We don't have actual dates when the compositions were written. So I can only assume that they were written roughly in the order that they were published, but that is far from certain. The earliest ones still available are his 4 vocal solos, published in 1910. And they're already attributed as Opus 15, numbers 1 through 4, implying there were at least 14 other pieces composed before then that we don't have. But remember, he supposedly wrote dance and orchestral music in his youth, so those certainly would have been some of those 14 pieces. But they've been lost. His next 2 pieces, published 2 years later in 1912, are listed as Opus 16, numbers 1 and 2. After that, none of his works have an opus number attached, so we have no way to know how many other works may have been written with or without an opus number. We do have reference to 2 other songs published in 1922 at the same time as Dinna Asked Me, but we don't have the music for them. We also have reference to an organ work titled Cantilena, published in 1912, but again, we don't have the music for that. Now, William's compositions were published by a wide variety of publishing houses, such as H.W. Gray, Novella, Theodore Presser, Lorenz, John Church, J. Fisher, Harold Flammer, Etude Magazine, and the Organ Portfolio. Now, it's a little unusual and quite impressive that so many companies published his works. Most composers would limit to 1 or 2 publishing houses. He also received awards for at least 2 of his works. He was awarded the first prize in Class 1 of the Etude Piano Solo Composition Contest in June of 1940 for his composition Waltz Rubato for piano. We have a copy of the Etude publication that cites him and profiles William alongside a reprint of the winning composition. His Shepherds in the Field piece, which we'll hear shortly, received honorable mention in Lorenz's 60th anniversary competition. In addition to these prizes, he dedicated a number of his works to various people, most of whom were quite famous and successful musicians. It is clear that William was well connected. Now, looking at all of the works that are still available to us, the vast majority would be organ music for the church, with 1 choral composition. His symphonic prelude for organ, which I'll end with, is quite different than the other organ works and is a much more significant piece. His vocal compositions are all secular in nature. His Waltz Rubato for piano, along with his piano and organ duet, Introduction and Romance, both rise to a significantly higher level of complexity and difficulty than anything else he wrote. Musically, you'll hear that William likes to modulate to many different keys in the course of a piece. His writing is or very pianistic in nature, with many octave doublings and repeated chords. He calls for very liberal use of the swell shoe and rubato to provide expression. He does write very pretty melodies, and all of his pieces are quite melodic. So today I want to play all of the organ pieces for you. They're only a few minutes long each. And I'm going to begin with 2 organ works that are based on hymn tunes, both still in use today. These would be classified as choral preludes for church work, typically on Sundays, when the hymn would also be sung by the congregation. So I decided to start with these, the first being Prelude for Thanksgiving, which you'll recognize as the familiar hymn We Gather Together. The second is based on the tune Germania, which is most commonly used for the hymn We're Crossed the Crowded Ways of Life. So we'll start with those. Next, I want to play one piece that was specifically written for weddings. And it's an arrangement of a vocal solo called Dreams, written by Anton Streletsky. Now, I have found and downloaded a rendition of the original vocal piece recorded in 1916. Apparently this song was a very popular song at the time, much like we have popular pieces today that often get played or sung at weddings. So first I want you to listen to the tenor soloist, and then I'll play William's arrangement of it. This would have been used when a soloist was not available.
When twilight comes with shadows near, I dream of thee, dear one, and grows my soul so dark and sad, I sadder than the twilight shadows drear. They tell me not to grieve, love, for thou wilt come, but I cannot tell why I fear their words are false. Love, I dream of thee, love, I dream of thee. Then thou'rt with me, then thou'rt with me, till I wake and find it all is a dream. When I look back on happier days, my eyes are filled with tears. I see thee then in visions plain, so true, so gentle, and so full of love. But now I fear to ask them if thou art alive. They tell me not to grieve, love, for thou wilt come at last. Love, I dream of thee, love, I dream of thee. Then thou'rt with me, then thou'rt with me, till I wake and find it all is a dream.
Next, I'll play William's general works for church. While the prior three works had given melodies, the first two were hymn tunes, and then the solo all had a melody that William had to arrange. The rest of the pieces are completely original to William. They're his melodies and his complete original works. They're all pastoral in nature, probably meant as preludes before the church service or during the offertory. As far as we know, William didn't write any rousing hymns typically used for postludes. All of these are quite soft and pastoral in nature. So I will put the titles of the pieces up as we go along rather than introducing each one, and we'll just go through these. finally, I want to end with what I think is his more significant or complex piece, that being his symphonic prelude. True to its title, it is very symphonic in nature, orchestral in nature, and significantly more complex than what we've heard so far. Quite a different nature to it. So we'll end with that, and I hope you've enjoyed learning about something about the musical side of the Steere family. Other than myself as a musician and William Steere, I only know of the Steere organ builder as the only other person who has done music as their work. So if you know of anyone else, please let us know. So let's hear his symphonic prelude.